Hello and welcome to the Tristan channel, and today in this video I'll be going over, it'll be a short video because unfortunately when I was looking at the scan, I did a quick scan of this article in terms of how long it would take. I mean, I read it, but obviously I just scanned to see how long it would take me to produce this video. Basically, it's quite a small article. I'm a little bit annoyed because I couldn't find the article, because I've already heard about this sort of stuff when I was doing research into transgenders, transgender people, individuals and stuff like that, and and the one I read was what was it? It was done in Germany, where it was like they did scan. I think it was over a period of time. It was like over a couple of several hundred, or I think it was over 1,400, something like that. So it was quite a lot of people that they did a lot of research on, scans on, tests on. And found these interesting results. So this is about brain scans, and it's quite interesting because basically, even though, for example, there's no major difference between male and female brains, there are slight indicators or differences. In other words, it's like if someone told you this is what, on average, a female brain looks like, neurologically, and then you got the male brain, right? And then they showed you two pictures and didn't show you who it belongs to. You could pick it out and say, well, that one looks most likely the female one. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like with this, it's like they've noticed in transgendered individuals, even from a young age, their brain scans are matching the gender they identify with, which is really fascinating. It's also really interesting because that way I think it'll also, you could use it as a prognosis to differentiate when doing gender therapy, whether someone who it fits a natural mental condition, or if it's I'm trying to simplify it, if it's genuine, if that makes sense. And basically I want to stress before I forget is also, because it's like in discussions I've had people make good points, ask interesting questions. It's like, well, what's the difference, for example, between someone who identifies as a woman or someone who identifies as some historical figure like Napoleon or something like that, right? Well, the difference is, what these scans will show is, obviously, say for example, I'm trying to simplify it, say, for example, there's some trauma that's happened in my life, so therefore I form an alter ego, whether that be some historical figure. That will show up on my scans. So there'd be like, apart from a few abnormalities which could be caused by trauma, there'll be signs to indicate that it's there's something there that's mental trauma damage, so they'll look at it and go, well, he's mentally ill, if that makes sense. Apart from anything else, his brain is perfectly healthy, and there's signs indicating that could be an actual mental illness caused by trauma or something like that. I'm trying to think of ways of putting it. Whereas this, the scans will show, the more they develop this work, the scans will show that, say for example, you identify as a woman, they do gender therapy. That means if they improve this, it'll make gender therapy easier. If that makes sense. It's like it's like, are they mentally ill or are they genuine? And this will help them differentiate that, because it will come up as their gender, if it makes sense. So it's like they genuinely are legit. If that makes, to simplify it, I'm trying to put it in simplified terms. So, yeah, unfortunately, this is a very small article. That's why it's not going to be a long video. The one I read was done in Germany. This is from... oh, no, it could be connected, though, because I know, basically, because it says here, the European Society of Endocrinology. I presume that's the big department, because they do represent the board, as it were, the main thing. But it's obviously they got teams, but basically it was the German team's research I read, their branch in Germany, basically, is another way of putting it. But anyway, brain activity. Sorry, this is paper. I mean, this is going back quite. I mean, this is what makes me laugh. Is people think that gender identity is a mental illness, and the thing is, if you've done any research into this sort of stuff, this part about the brain scans, I'm surprised no one's. This is what makes me laugh when you got people on these American TV shows. They're calling, attacking trans people, saying they're deluded. It's like, well, you've claimed to do all this research. This is the thing. See, the problem is they're fixated. They're so, excuse my language, but they're so anally obsessed with the biology argument. They're not looking at any other factors. They're so obsessed. They're like, you know what I mean? And this part of the research, I'm like, well, how come you don't know about this stuff? Because if people have been looking at all the latest stuff, especially when they go onto these shows and presenting an argument, it's like, oh, it's a mental illness. You're just mentally ill. You're deluded. It's like, but it's like, oh, so you missed out the research about the brain scans and the neurology and anthropology research. It's like, seriously? It's like, how can you miss this important chapter in gender research that's been going on for 30 years? You know what I mean? So this is, for example, a small article by Science Daily, dated May 24th, 2018. Source is the European Society of Endocrinology. Summary of what the article is about is brain activity and structure in transgender adolescents more closely resembles the typical activation patterns of their desired gender. In other words, if you identify as a female, you will register as female, and male, and vice versa. Basically, whatever gender you identify as, it'll flag up as that. Yeah. According to new research, the findings suggest that differences in brain function may occur early in development. Sorry, I just had breakfast. Development, and that brain imaging may be a useful tool for earlier identification of transgenderism in young people. So, in other words, yes, as you can see, they can use it, like I said earlier, they can use it as a tool in determining, gender therapy. When you have to go, if you're a trans individual, I hate using these terms, but I have to use them for the video, but to explain. But when you go to the gender clinics, they have to, before you can go for any treatments and all this, they have to determine you're serious. Well, this could be the final nail on the coffin for them to go, yeah, let's go help you do this. Because you come up as your identity on the scan, if that makes sense. I'm probably oversimplifying it, but I'm trying to make it easy to wrap people's head around. So, full story. Brain activity and structure in transgender adolescents more closely resembles the typical activation patterns of the desired gender, according to findings to be presented in Barcelona at the European Society of Endocrinology annual meeting, ECE 2018. So basically, because the article I read was quite new, so what I've read is the after effects, or part of the after effects of this research. So these findings suggest that the differences in brain function may occur early in development, and that brain imaging may be a useful tool for early identification of transgenderism as young people. Transgenderism is an experience or identification with a gender different to the assigned biological sex. Now, I know that people get upset with that terminology, but the thing is, that's the terminology that science has come up with now. Because all this stuff that's come out, it's not nothing to do with all this pandering. It's nothing to do with pandering to people. That's absolute bollocks. That's just right wing tosh. The thing is, because there's so much revelations coming out. It is I know it sounds a bit silly, but my simplification of it is, it's a bit moronic to identify someone as 100% of one gender when they're not that gender. Because if the brain scan comes up as something else, it's like, well, that person may have the outer casing of a man or a woman, but they're not registering that inside, if that makes sense. I'm trying to simplify it, trying to keep it simple. So, before you actually set it in stone, you go, well, we assigned them that because we looked down and went, oh, look at that, look at the wedding tackle. So it's kind of like they have, science has reasons for changing these. You know what I mean? The medical board, all that, they have reasons for changing this. Because there's lots of work going on, and all I can say is just keep up with it. It's like, it's not, and it's like, but people just go, why do they do it? They're pandering to the trans police. It's the trans people that are changing. Again, like I said in my other videos, trans people have no pull. Thing is, Black Lives Matter, stuff like that has a pull, but that's because a very large percentage of the humans on this planet are ethnics and blacks. So I hate to use those terms, but I'm trying to illustrate a point. There's loads of black people on planet Earth. There's lots of different ethnic races on planet Earth. So when it comes to racism, they're going to have a lot more clout because there's loads of them. They can actually mass in number to make a difference. Trans people, as far as the government concerned, especially look at some of the laws that brought out against them in America, as far as they're concerned, they're just a group of people being angry who want their little special place in the. That's what the politicians think. They couldn't give a shit. I'm not saying that's all for all politicians. I'm not saying that not all politicians care, but they have no clout. Get over it, people. Right, so transgender is assigned to biological sex, whilst gender dysphoria, GED, is the distress experienced by transgender people and may be present from a very young age. Although GED incidence is rare, gender identity is an essential part of psychological health, and if undressed, can lead to serious psychological issues. Current strategies for addressing GED in younger people involve psychotherapy or delaying puberty with hormones, so that decisions on transgender therapy, with the help, and they do get help with specialists, don't just do it blasé, can be made at an older age. Genetics and hormones contribute to sex differences in brain development and function that lead to more male or female typical characteristics. See, that's the other thing as well. There's another interesting video from TED Talks where this biologist, she's trans, and a lot of people go, yeah, but she's going to be biased, isn't she, because she's trans, she's trying to justify herself. It's like, no, she went into biology to try and get an answer to it all herself. And people are so anally obsessed with bloody biology. There are so many other variables and factors that come into consideration, like genetics. Biology is just 1%. It's like a small percentage of, it's just a part of genetics. There's all kinds of things. There are things in your body that rewrite stuff and do stuff. There's all kinds of different things. Genetic. So rather than just be obsessed with genetics, it's like the whole joke. Because I personally believe we're a mixture. Because it's like that genetic joke of Adam and Eve. No one's pure A and B, because it's like, otherwise you'd get Adam and Steve. Essentially, it'd be like cloning. There's one program I watch on genetics where it's like, well, if everything was set, if everything was black and white, especially when it comes to humans, if it was black and white, believe it or not, you would come out as a carbon copy of your dad. If that makes sense. But because there's so many variables. Like I said, I've stated several theories, and people have gone, oh no, that's just stupid, because otherwise this will happen and that will happen. It's like, well, oddly enough, because of certain people who already are living in our day and age now, a lot of my theories have actually been proven right. And also the implications of, and that's what, if you look at intersex people, there are some implications to that, which are implications into that as we start studying, as they start testing more and more people, which is interesting. So I'm going to say, watch your space on that one as well. Characteristics. However, these processes are not well established. Furthermore, little is known on how early in life or to what extent the gender-typical characteristics of transgender people become established. Earlier diagnosis or better understanding of transgenderism could help to improve quality of life for transgender people and help families to make more informed decisions on treatment. So this works good because it helps them refine that diagnoses, that analyses, so they can then guarantee 100% that this is the right choice for the individual, and all that going forward in their gender therapy. In this study, Dr. Julie Baker from the University of Liege, Belgium, and her colleagues from the Centre of Expertise on Gender Dysphoria at the VU University Medical Centre, The Netherlands examined sex differences in the brain activation patterns of young transgender people. The study included both adolescent boys and girls with gender dysphoria and used magnetic resonance imaging scans to assess the brain activation patterns in response to a pheromone known to produce gender-specific activity. The pattern of the brain activation in both transgender and adolescent boys and girls more closely resembled that of non-transgender boys and girls of the desired gender. In other words, if you are truly a boy, you could say, I identify as a girl, but the brain scan will say, I hate to tell you this, you may feel like you identify as a girl, but your brain scan shows you you're a boy. Well, it's oversimplification, but you know what I mean. In addition, GD adolescent girls showed a male-typical brain activation pattern during a visual spatial memory exercise. Finally, some brain structural changes were detected that were also more similar, but not identical to those of the desired gender of GD brain. That's one bit I didn't. I mean, I might have read it in the other one. I can't remember. That's interesting as well. The structure. So, even on a structural level, I mean, that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because it's like, because this whole thing. I know a lot of people and transgender people hate this term, but it is kind of, this work is literally showing. Oh, I am born in the wrong body. You know, like, you know, if you're a trans woman, I was a woman born in a man's body. It is literally like a. It's fascinating. Isn't it? It's like, wow. It's just interesting because also structurally, that's. I mean, wow. I mean, I know that's not 100% literally like the same, but imagine that though. That's like, you know, imagine like when we build machines and your head gets plonked into a, like, say, a female bot. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa, dude, what am I doing? Hey, you know what I mean? It's like literally, it's like having a. No, it's fascinating, isn't it? But the thing is, also, it shows that it's not a mental illness. It's. I find it fascinating. Yeah. Dr. Becker says that although more research is needed, we now have evidence that sexual differentiation of the brains differs in young people with GD as they show functional brain characteristics that are typical of their desired gender. So that means if you, for all you transgender people out there who want to go F you to all those transphobes, get a picture of your head, get a picture of your brain scan, and go, there you go, mother chucker, and have also the doctors involved sign it and go, there you go. According to them, I'm fucking legit. Dr. Becker's research will now, I know I'm simplifying it there, but I mean, Dr. Becker's research will now investigate the role of hormones during puberty on the brain development and transgender differences to help guide and improve future diagnoses and therapy for GD adolescents. Dr. Baker comments, we will then better be equipped to support these young people instead of just sending them to a psychiatrist and hoping that their distress will disappear spontaneously. There you go. Incredible stuff and fascinating stuff. And this one makes me laugh as well, because people go, especially like right-wing nut jobs on these shows, is they don't do this research. It's like, if you looked at this particular area of gender research, then it's like you can't dismiss it. You can't go, oh, then it's a delusion, or it's a mental illness, or it's this or that. It's like they're finding quite incredibly and fascinating. I love science when it works and comes up with fascinating stuff, that these people who identify as women are legit. And if you took their brain scan and compared it with, I hate using this word, sorry, but I have to use it for the tools. So a cisgender woman, their brain scans will match. So it's like, well, they're legit, aren't they? It's like, if you believe unequivocally that gender is binary and it's not on a spectrum, either way, you're fucked. You still lost the argument, because you've just even, like, I don't know, you've put an extra clip into the gun, as it were, of gender identity, because it's kind of like, well, okay, gender's binary, but this person is registering as female mentally, mentally and structurally in the brain. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? So then in which case, you would have to then go, okay, if that's the case, then what might have happened then is if they are, there is, they do say there's no differences anyway, but there are specific patterns which you can tell what differential men and women. But there's no major difference. So no, balance of sexes is bullshit. But then that leads to the interesting aspects of, well, does that mean that person was meant to be born as a girl? It's just that something went wrong not went wrong, but the mutations happened differently in the womb. So the brain, the package system, as it were, the software was there, but the body, it's again, I say that's what I say about computers. And if you look at computer engineers, they say reality is very much like a computer game. And I always said it like gender identity is like playing a computer game, except with gender therapy is like modern day games where you can choose what sex you play. So it's like before, you could be a female who's stuck with a male character of the story or something like that. But I'm trying to think of a way of simplifying it. But you get the gist of what I'm about. It's like you're a female playing a male character, but because you're being yourself, how you would play it, because you have your own female influences and behaviours onto that character. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of simplifying it, but you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's fascinating. But but like I said, it also helps, like I say, and because there's a big major concern with like, oh, but almost if it's just trauma, if shouldn't we then try and find a way to cure them rather than just giving them the go ahead on the treatment? Which they don't do anyway. That's just right. That's just media hoo-ha. The therapy hasn't gone out the window. It's not stupid. Obviously, in America, just like with plastic surgery, yes, if you've got enough money, you don't need gender therapy. You can just change your sex. But that applies to all areas of the medical field. You know what I mean? So people need to stop. The thing is, people need to stop fixating on trans people and leave them alone. It's like trans people don't have any clout. They're not changing anything. But anyway, these new findings, it's interesting because obviously they can go, is this person identifying this because of trauma? Are they mentally ill? Do they need to tackle this issue? Or because they generally are that gender? You know what I mean? So it provides an extra safety net or an extra diagnosis for the thing. Obviously, I think they also, they said in one article as well. I mean, I think Tyson said in an interview as well. The other thing is, depending on the level of state they're in. Also, even if the scans came out negative, it's like sorry, but you are a man. So I'm trying to oversimplify this to get my point across. The thing is, they do say because of we have certain freedoms. They may still have to let that person transition if it means it will cure them of their trauma. Because that's the thing, you see. If you look at it's like what modern doctors said about treatment now compared to the old Edwardian medieval treatments of old. It's like, why would you put people through hell when they've already been through hell and you want to cure them of that? If the treatment is going to save them, if helping them transition will make them the most stable, happiest person on the planet, then let them do it. Fair enough. So there are some cases where they may still need to go ahead with that decision. But in general, and also it also helps to validate transgender people, and that is this research to do with the brain scans. And also it helps, like I said, helps with the gender therapy diagnoses and evaluation and all that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, fascinating stuff. But I do find it funny that you get, people go on these programs and attack transgender people, and they're so fixated on biology, but they don't look at all these other things going on in gender research. Because if they did, they wouldn't be so silly, not silly about it. They won't be so narrow-minded about it. They wouldn't think, oh, these people are just mentally ill and disturbed, and they need to get sectioned or treated, or you know what I mean, or they're abnormal. Well, they're not. It's just the thing is also, even this is what makes me laugh, is people seem to think the book on biology is closed. It isn't. That's bullshit. they're still researching that. They are. They're still researching that. The door's open. I did a video on gender anyway, which explains certain things. But that door's still open. There's things to do with genetics, all kinds of things that they're still looking into. The gender therapy has been an ongoing process for over the past 30 years. Not one biologist has stated, this is fact, this is the way it is. None of them have said that. There may have been a consensus, but it's like a good friend of mine said this. Because when he said to me about, say, for example, biology, it's like, you're not saying he can necessarily agree with it, but it's like the best way to look at it is this. From what they got now, in terms of biology, so the whole idea that, say for example, I'm just saying, to try and simplify. Say, for example, that gender biologically is a binary. That is based on the evidence from what they see so far. The key words there being so far. And like I said, if you look into all of this, the door is still open. They still look into it. Because the funny thing is, this is what I find funny, right? When they say this is fact and this is fact. If you believe that as an absolute, you're a moron. Shall I tell you why? Because we've only recently, and this is so true, we've only recently invented or come up with a technology that can actually properly analyse you on the biological genetic level. Yeah? In the 60s and 70s, going backwards, they didn't have that technology. They're going off of not just philosophical, but religious, as well as other societal way of thinking. Yeah. So the whole idea of I'm not saying it isn't, but the whole idea of gender being binary isn't something that's been cemented as fact. It's what we think so far, but it's not a credible absolute fact because we've only just recently got the technology to analyse it. Duh. Hence why it's still going on. Gender research is still going on. People seem to think that the case is closed. It's not. It's still going on. But have you noticed, as I said in my other video, it's like if transgenderism was abnormal, wrong, if in-sex people, or if all of this was an abnormality and it was wrong, from day one, years ago, they would have started eradicating out or treating it as a mental illness. They were section people. You know what I mean? Science doesn't respect your feelings. Facts don't appreciate your feelings. They would have you wouldn't have transgender people today. We might still have a few, but it'll be a slow, ongoing process of conversion. Basically, you're talking about mass conversion. But the fact that biologists haven't done that, because at the end of the day, they have yes, at the same time we have freedoms and we should respect people's feelings, but at the end of the day, there's still that degree of oath, syncretic oath, where they got to do what's best. You know what I mean? It's like me saying, oh no, just because he's a psychopath and he's happy, we won't try and cure him. You know what I mean? If they try and cure psychopaths, regardless if the psychopath's happy killing people, I'm trying to simplify, I don't know. They still go and try and cure that guy. You know what I mean? Whether he's happy going around killing people. It's not like they're going to leave him as like, oh, he's just going to leave him as he is because he's happy that way. No, they don't fuck about. So if it was abnormal and wrong, it would have been eradicated. Oh God, my screen kept dark. They'd be eradicating transgenderism. It'd be a non-issue. There'd be like side effects as a mental illness that we are slowly tackling. They wouldn't be helping creating more transgender people. They'd be trying to find ways to cure them. At worst, section them. You know what I mean? That's what would happen. But it ain't. The gender research is still going on. They're finding more doors opening, more questions. So people need to get this fixation, all these ideas of certain facts and certain ideas, fixations out their head. It's nonsense. It's like with climate science. Climate science is still undetermined. There's a consensus there's a consensus now, but it's like a guy from NASA work goes, yeah, but our technology in terms of analysing climate is still young. It's still fresh. And it's the same with medicine and science. It's like we've only just come out with the technology to be able to do it. Yeah? Brain scans, in terms of really sophisticated brain scans, haven't been out that long. You know what I mean? So the whole idea that the case is closed when it comes to even biology, even in terms of gender, the case of that being closed is nonsense. That's just people being narrow-minded. And obviously, with the right-wing aspect of it, it's like the people whose life's goal is to destroy trans people. Obviously, they're fixated on that. They're very narrow-minded. They haven't bothered to look at everything. And it's like, the thing is, if you look at all the research, it's an ongoing process. They're looking at other variables, and obviously with this now, with the brain scans, it's an ongoing piece of work. It's an ongoing work. It's not case closed. It's not, these people, this is the facts, this is the way it is, that's how it is, deal with it. People, they're just deluded, they're just mentally ill, there's just something wrong with these people, No. And as my favourite quote is, science is inclusive. You don't have to be, but that's just, that's your choice. At the end of the day, it's like, yes, I tend to have a habit of speaking up for the underdog, the people who get trodden on. And if I've got, and I got a very valid reason. The thing is, also, I don't believe in bullshit. I'm not someone who believes in bullshit. I may have ideas, have certain beliefs that people may not agree with, or that's because we're all fucking different, duh. But I don't believe in bullshit. If transgenderism was an actual serious mental issue, they're just mental, they're mentally ill, it's not genuine, or there's no legitimacy behind it, I wouldn't be nasty to them, but I wouldn't support it. I'd be like, I love them because they're people, but I think they need help, would be my attitude to it. But no. And like I said, the gender research is still going on. People are treating gender identity, gender research, and all as if it's a closed case. It's not. It's still going on. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, I find this fascinating. This is really fascinating. It's really good. And like I said, this could help transgender people a lot. Because one, it can help validate their identity. Two, it can help in a diagnosis and assessment of adolescents and people who want gender assignment and all that sort of thing. So yeah, like I said, the one I read was in Germany, and basically over a period of time, I can't remember if it's several hundred or several, at least I think it's either 1,000, something it might have been, individuals, transgender people, and was it not? It might be a mixture of transgender and non-transgender people, or it might be just transgender people, because obviously we know what. Because we've got MRI, we know what men and women look like, because they've already done men and women tests, haven't they? So yeah, I'm trying to remember, think back, because it's quite a big article. Actually, it's quite a big science paper. But anyway, and I'm annoyed because I can't find it. I thought I'd put it in a link on my videos. So I'm like, anyway. So yeah, fascinating stuff, isn't it, folks? And I hope this is good news to some of my subscribers. If you're trans, I hope this is good news as well for you. But yeah, if you want, to get one back, if they're not convinced by a bit of paper given to you by your doctor, get an MRI scan and go, put that in your pipe and smoke it. But yeah, I find it fascinating. It's really, yeah. But anyway, yeah, sorry I rambled on a bit as well, but it's like, yeah, but there's a few things I have to say, and important things I have to say in these videos, because it's not a closed case. Like I said, it's not a closed case. It's what we think of biology is not 100% concrete. It's like, and it's like, to be fair, people go, it's like, I am a bit of a nutter, because I can't sleep anyway, so I always think about stuff, try and solve problems. My brain won't let me leave me alone. It's like a computer. Doesn't mean I'm better or smarter than anyone. Believe it or not, I would rather be an ignorant moron than live with the way my brain works, because it's kind of like, Jesus, it's like I might have to get some fucking sleep, excuse me French, but you know what I mean. But people don't seem to realise that I spend a shit ton of hours. It's like, people may go, I spent about 5 or 6 hours on things. Accumulatively, my hours are quite big. I mean, it's like, I can't do it now, but when I used to study ancient Rome, not as not at school, but just study it as a hobby, I would read about, was it 2 books at a time? Not at the same time, like next to each other, like Johnny 5. But say one evening, I'd like read a big segment of one book. The following day, I'd read a segment from the other book. And my mum was like, how the hell do you do it? I still don't know how I do it. I can't do it now. But to be fair, I think also, these days, I think I'm more picky. I have to be motivated to read stuff and things like that. But yeah, I've not only that I've put a stupid amount of hours of research into this sort of stuff. Actually, the thing is, I started way back anyway, compared to quite a few people I've come across. I've started a long way back, to give credit where credit's due, because as soon as I got involved, I had friends who were trans, who came out as trans. That's it, bang, I started on the thing to understand it. Because to be fair, I was surprised how many years I hadn't heard of transgender people. But then again, I don't judge. That's the interesting thing. I've never noticed transgender people because I don't judge people anyway. I wouldn't see it as an abnormal. I know I'm not saying everyone's judgmental, but you know what I mean. It wouldn't register as weird, if that makes sense, or something that's different. You know what I mean? Because my brain doesn't think like that. I don't judge people that way. You know what I mean? I judge people. It doesn't matter if they come up to me. It doesn't matter if they weren't transgender, but if they were, say, a cross-dresser. My first impressions of them wouldn't be, oh, they're someone dressed in women's clothing. It would be like, my brain will be looking for their personality and assessing their personality. It's like, do I want to speak to this person? You know what I mean? My brain doesn't go by appearance. It doesn't lock onto appearances first. Obviously, in dangerous situations where it's like if there's a mugger or something, then yeah, but then again, that's a fight or flight. That's a different mechanism in the brain. You know what I mean? Similar bit, but you know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, I'm waffling on. But yeah, it's not a closed case, right? So before people say, oh, trans people are not valid, all I can say is shut up. Science will disagree with you. Science is still looking into it. Put it this way, right? Don't look at it as concrete, absolute case closed. Don't stop. The thing is, people go, oh, they're open-minded. No, if you're open-minded, it won't be, this is how it is, this is how it is. That's not it. Because I actually did a video on open-mindedness. I look at all, when I say accept possibilities, I don't accept them to be true. I'm not gullible. I accept all possibilities. Yeah? People say, how can you do that? You can't live like that. I think they misunderstood. When you accept all possibilities, it means whatever outcome, it doesn't affect my life greatly. It's only if you believe them. There's a difference between actually accepting them as true and just accepting the information. I just accept the information, so all possible routes, all possible information avenues I take, but I don't actually take them as true. The funny thing is with this, it means if aliens turned up on planet Earth, it wouldn't surprise me if it just wouldn't. If any revelations come out, I'd be like, yeah, wouldn't be surprising. But all I say is ask more questions. Don't go case closed, because it isn't. Anyone who thinks the case is closed and that transgender people are mentally ill, people need to get medical help. There's something wrong with people like that. They clearly have not done their research. And you can tell when people say they have, because some of the crap they come out with. It's like, I'm not saying they haven't looked into it, but I just question their sources, because oddly enough, every avenue I've been down, and I choose non-biased sources, they all converge on the same conclusion, the same consensus, the same research, the same answer. And it's not what people have been saying it is. It's like, seriously, that there's still the book is still open on gender, and whether it be biologically or neurologically, it's still open. It's not concrete. It's, yeah. So, and the reason, and the thing is, and a lot of these right-wing media idiots may sound like they make a lot of sense, but guess what? That's how they get supporters. They have no scientific background. But this way, I used to like David Icke before he went a bit weird on some of his things. The reason why Alex Jones and David Icke have a large following is because they throw a lot of stuff in there that makes sense. That's how you get people to buy your stuff or buy into your stuff. Doesn't mean they're actually smart people. It's like people go, oh yeah, but he made a good point, or she made a good point. They probably stole that from someone else. Or just because they made a good point doesn't mean they actually know what they're talking about or that they're fucking clever. Because if you look into their background or look at their other stuff, they're fucking morons. And they don't speak for science. There'll be maybe scientists who have differing opinions, but they still support trans people. Science is still in the transgender corner, and it's not because they're pandering to the transgender individuals. You know, they're not doing. Transgender people have no voice or clout. If they were an abomination against nature, they would have been eradicated. They would have been dealt with. They would have been cured, converged. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have been given a wide berth. You know what I mean? Regardless of freedoms, you have your own freedoms, but obviously if you're ill and you need medical help, you get help, don't you? It's like, otherwise you'd be like, yeah, but we have freedoms to be a serial killer. You know what I mean? There's a in terms of medicine, there's a line. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure you don't know what I'm getting at. But anyway, I'll end the video here because I'm waffling. But yeah, so if you can, there's some more stuff on the internet to find. But yeah, I think my one was done by a team in Germany under the same department. But yeah, it's fascinating stuff, isn't it? So if you found this fascinating, you find this sort of topic and subject fascinating, then hit the like and yeah. And obviously, I hope this is good news to the transgender people out there. And I hate using that term because trans people to me are just people. It's like, seriously, I don't know what the issue is. I seriously do not know what the issue is. I find it really weird. There are more there's more. The human race in general are weird. End of. Everyone on this planet is weird. We're all weird. The whole human race is weird. Yeah. It's like to use the same ignorance as the right wing would use. It's like, if humans were meant to fly, we would have evolved with fucking wings. But we didn't. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have built planes. But the thing is, an ape, right? We are apes, decided it wanted to fly. So it built a flipping vehicle that made him fly. Surely, even though you could argue that it's just evolution. Yeah, well, it's evolution, it's just sophistication. But you could argue that goes against the natural order of things. It's like if you were said to a cowboy, in the 21st century, we run for pleasure. They'd laugh at you. They go, what do you do then to get around places? Oh, we have horseless carriages. They would think you're weird. So obviously, if you're in an old mindset, you're going to think a lot of this stuff's weird. But all humans are weird. I actually wanted to do a book because people said to me, because of the way I think, I should do a book on humans from an alien perspective. And yeah, it would have took me years. I wouldn't have got any benefits publishing it until I died because it'd be like Hitchhiker's Guide, this sort of book, with the size of Britannica, and it's just all the weird things that humans do. I mean, for God's sake, we cut down trees, turn that trees into paper just so we can clean our butts. And we also fight over money, which used to be made of paper, which has no difference in structure compared to toilet paper. Humans are weird, and you're worried about people who identify as women. Regardless of if it's right or wrong, whatever, you're worried about that and you're angry about that. There are more important issues on this earth, like child abuse, child poverty in general, austerity, injustice, war, all of it. There's all kinds of issues that are way more important that you should be. And if people put their passion and hatred for transgender people and all these other topics into the more important issues, the world would be a different fucking place. So until next time, folks, take care. I'm going to leave on a note. Until next time, folks, take care. Hope you found this fascinating. See you soon.